Hello and welcome to the Butterfly Effect, a show about becoming. In this episode, we meet Esosa Ohonba, a founder of Layman, which is a justice tech company that help individuals and lawyers navigate civil legal processes. Esosa is a graduate of NYU Law School, where he was able to discover that the access to justice is actually not so accessible. And the gap for many people, especially diverse groups and minorities and underserved population, is in fact very large. That's why he decided to make a difference and design a solution called Layman, where he can bridge and help you and everyone else in need accessing the justice we need. He told me in our conversation that the most important capital we have is our resilience. I guess we need a lot of resilience while facing the justice system, but also in our daily lives when we take off for the butterfly flights. And here is mine with Esosa Ohonba. Esosa, why are you?
This is such a hard question,
It is.
because there's so many ways you can take it, right? You can take it in the metaphysical way, like why is anyone? You can take it in the material way, like what made you? How are you? You could take it in the philosophical way. What are you being? Um, but why are you is to me at the core a set of promises that I make to myself and to this general social compact that we all live in. Why are you is this constant affirmation that I will make a change, I will make an impact, I will be kind, I will be patient, that I wake up and continuously choose to do every single day, no matter how hard it is. If there's anything that is why are you, it won't be the circumstances of my origin, and as you can see, I'm dramatically far removed from that at this point in time. It will be the intentionality with which I live the rest of my life and how I do every individual action afterwards. So why are you is because I want to be is the answer to the question. And I hope that everyone else can take that stance too or feel empowered to do so one day.
Is the American dream still alive? And if yes, how, as a first generation American, do you make the American dream a reality?
So, for context, I am a first generation American in that I am Nigerian American. My family came to America fleeing the Biafran conflict in Nigeria. So, essentially, we're part of a piece of land that was embattled between the US, France, and some separatists and the Benin Kingdom. It was a very involved conflict for a reason that is kind of beyond all of us, which led to my family seeing refugee and asylum status in America. My parents chose America of all places because they felt that it is the most commercially viable nation. At least it seemed that it was possible that almost anyone could, like, find some level of economic middle ground. And what I find interesting between the time that my parents moved here and now is that that reality has become dramatically harder. So a lot of the civil programs that they relied upon to get themselves started do not exist anymore. A lot of the programs that made it possible for them to go to school and go to decent schools eventually also do not exist anymore. And when it comes to the narrative of the question of like, does the American dream still alive as a whole, is a much harder question to answer. I think one of the things we have to think about when it comes to America is that it's still one of the only places in the world where you can move out of the economic class of your parents. Studies and statistics shows that it is possible for the children's of a family or a parent to go to an economic class higher than their parents, but also in the same term, because we have no social safety net in this nation, is equally as possible, if not more likely, to go to a lower social economic class than your parents did. So the elements of an American dream that my parents once relied upon, right? Like, tax breaks and benefits on getting their first home, uh, quote quota programs and also diversity programs that help them to get their first opportunity, settlement programs, and so forth have all been generally defunded or do not exist. However, once again, there is a small chance. I think the question of like how do we keep the American dream alive as a first gen immigrant in the current day is like how do we define the American dream now? One is one question. And then the separate question of now we're defining the American dream, some of the material elements of the American dream do not exist. Well, how do we start to remake those things in ways that are accessible to us? I redefine it as certain the values that we were not able to hold in the 90s or the 80s and the early 2000s, such as like connection to community, or at least we took them for granted at the period of time. I try to enforce them more so than ever before, showing that community wealth is also valuable to a first gen immigrant or any American. And I also try to explore alternative forms of economics where I can be more mutual aid, reliance, and connection with other people, and so that we can find more sustainability and protection in this ongoing decade we're currently in. Resilience is not only individual success, it's not only the individual movements to another economic class. Resilience is also how do we trade and transact with one another and what types of ventures we are trying to create ourselves. And it's very important to recognize that form of resilience when the other pathways are being blocked away from us. And also when this form of resilience actually provides more protection from extractive economies that are currently coming to existence in the current moment of time.
And you explored a little bit for us the experience of your parents. And in addition to that experience that shaped you, I'm wondering what made Esosa Esosa in terms of ideas, inspirations, people, places.
I like to say that I'm a hyphenate American. That means that I have minority status in almost every single capacity. It's not just what you visually see, but obviously other capacities as well. That gives given me so much rich context over the lived experience of being in this country that's inherently diverse in a way that means everyone has an opinion about everybody else, which is what I refer to American diversity as. It makes me one of the best like little anthropologists the nation could have because you're always the other and having these conversations. But that also gives you a beautiful, unique perspective of how dominant narratives, dominant modes of communication, and dominant viewpoints withhold the minority or a unique angle to the majority as well. So coming into so many rooms in my lifetime, going from originally Texas, a small town in Texas, to coming to the Big Apple, as you can imagine, New York City, and going through so many positions and spaces, which is like in government and also in private spaces, allowed me to experience so much of the American contexture, or at least the narrative Americans tell themselves about America, especially as the other who now gets to see either the underbelly, the backside, the shadow, what is missing, what could be added, and what opportunities are there in adding those conversations. I believe this shaped me in a meaningful way in being someone who's more conscientious and more open-minded, but also a lot more creative. Because I'm now given this dominant narrative that does not fit to me no matter what did I do. So the rest of the narrative is now basically a blue ocean for us to define. I find a lot of space and energy and also value in defining that space.
And you channel that energy into incredible things. Just to remind our audience, you were capable of getting your JD degree, the Juris Doctorate, at the same time while you were starting your company. And that makes me just wondering, like, what keeps you motivated and strong?
So I think one of the things I want to recognize for all people who are not just given things, you know what I mean, in this country and this society, is that we kind of just have to do it. There is a really interesting premise about people who either are given things and then do something, or people who just like, we gotta do it. And you know what I mean when I say that statement, because there's like so many problems you run into your life where it's like, oh, there's something a problem with my car, there's a problem with my taxes, there's a problem, you just gotta do it. And it's that immediacy and urgency that some people live their entire lives in. And then there's that immediacy and urgency some people don't really know about until it comes to them. And for a lot of the marginalized immigrants, minorities, and so forth in the country, they have a gotta do it reality. is now it's a question of like what do you apply that to more so is one thing to apply it to yourself and your current lived experience, but it's also another thing to apply it to the community and larger visions and goals that you may have. Having a mindset that you realize that, okay, my success is fundamentally tied to the success of others and people around me and how they're succeeding in society now means that what it means for me to be successful, what it means to be okay, what it means to be resilient is a question of I just got to do it. And I think that's how I approach a lot of these harder elements. So before NYU Law, I was getting my graduate degree in data science at Columbia. At the same time, I was working at the mayor's office almost essentially the full time of I'll wake up at 4, go to the office by 5, be at the office until 1 or 2, then go to Columbia to do my master's degree classes. Go immediately into NYU Law, and then in this experience, I see this immense gap around access to justice that is leading to one, a huge market opportunity, but in two, an incredible failure of the system, the democratic system, when it comes to resolving disputes. I look at it as a question of okay, I could continue to focus on myself and and how I want to perceive through it, or I could recognize once again that my vision, my values, and also my ultimately my own success is tied to the people around me and how well and how okay they're doing. So then just gotta do it means that you gotta start this company as soon as possible and do it as best as you possibly can.
This mindset of just do it. Can you tell us like how actually you started your company? What was like the trigger moment that made you like, okay, now I'm gonna do something on my own because the other things might be not working, or I'm really motivated to make a difference with my own tools. How did it started?
The way to look at it is as there is definitely some problems in this life that no one else will do them, or they won't do it the way that you will get it done. So I was sitting in this class learning it was complex torts because I wanted to be a complex tort litigator at some point in time. I was sitting in this class and starting to notice this huge pro se litigant gap issue in the country where there's like 40 million Americans per year, and this is the conservative amount, going to the court system by themselves and then trying to defend their rights. And they have a 7% chance of success. That means that 93% of the time they just fail. And given the fact that lawyers are 49% or at least one half successful at litigating in court, there is a huge type 1 error. In statistics, that means there's like a huge chance that a lot of people have valid claims against entities, people, authorities, each other that are just completely being lost, not on the merits, but based on procedure. That means that people are now losing their homes, losing their immigration status, losing wages, losing their family members because they simply were not able to advocate effectively in the court system. So I saw this huge problem and I thought about it about my question of my life, this narrative of like, okay, how does my personal success or how my success at that time was tied to the success of others? And I was like, there were definitely moments in my life where if I could have advocated better, I would have had a better outcome. Inversely, there are moments in my life, like the moment that I'm in currently, that only came about because I was able to advocate effectively, but the bar is so high. The bar is penultimately unfair in a way. And this is before law school entirely. So to me, the question became, okay, just gotta do it. If I don't do this now, that'll be another 40 million Americans, maybe unique, maybe not unique, from the year before, who are also not going to be served with this current system and will continue to suffer losses that are unnecessary, lose their homes, lose their family members, lose their jobs. I could say that we could wait for someone else to do it. I could wait to do it at a better time. I could wait to do it. But once again, that is 40 million Americans now lost while we are waiting. And I don't think that is fair, in my opinion. I was like, this is not the type of success that I want to enjoy. The success that I want to enjoy is tied intimately to this. And it's now that pursuit that was the spark point for starting this company as soon as possible once I got the skills to do so and putting it out there and trying out my best to put out there in the world.
And your company is classified as Justice Tech Enterprise, and it's called Layman. Could you tell us like a little bit more about it? Like, if I look for some legal assistance or something happens to me either on a road or in my supermarket, how can I benefit out of your creation?
Layman's comes from my experience working in legal services and my network in legal services. So I kind of put all of the things we ever dreamed of for a legal service product into one place and built upon my own thesis when it comes to courtroom navigators in healthcare and public health. So putting that all together, Layman's is the radical concept of like, what if every single American had the best ability to advocate for themselves in almost all situations where they interface with the justice system? Radical, crazy concept. People don't get excited about it unless they went through a problem themselves. But if you've been through a problem yourself, you're like, okay, wait, that's interesting. Layman's is a mobile first platform with an AI model, AI, whatever. But at least an AI model has been designed from the ground up to be as secure, as hallucination free, and as helpful as possible while not giving you legal advice. It helps you go from the entire process of like, I have an issue, to filing something and also potentially making an appeal for most of the spaces where you interact with the justice system. And you can name any problem, but I can give you, it will probably be able to help you with it. So let's do the example you just gave. You went to the grocery store, and let's say you ran into a bad product. Layman's is a courtroom navigator, so you will talk to it. It will say, okay, let's catalog the evidence together. Let's put together the issue. Let's categorize it. Let's make your initial legal document. Here's where you file it. You can pay to file it on the app while still on your phone. Have it be filed in the court or filed in some arbitration system of some sort. And then it will monitor that process for you, real-time docket updates, and also notifying you and sharing educational resources with you so that you can advocate effectively. Layman's was designed for the interestingly doomsday scenario where our justice system and attorneys therein cannot help you. Not that we don't want to, but simply we don't have the capacity to. Or the federal entities that we have are not able to litigate these issues for themselves. And America has this beautiful opportunity where you always are allowed your day in court, even if you're by yourself. That if we can fully actualize through education and support, you can end up being a lot more effective in getting your claims across just on your own. We found that the app, or at least interventions like it, got to a 30% chance of success, close to the lawyer's 49%. And that's above the 7% that I told you about as a standard. That means that we're now materially improving people's lives and experiences through our solution. And there's not only that claim where you like, I found a rotting product in my food market, but let's say you ran into authorities. Hey, you can hop on Layman's, make a live stream, record it, put that evidence together into a pamphlet. Layman's will tell you where to file it, tell you what document to file it with, help you build that document, send it over, and help you monitor the process. You can just keep going on and on about every element of where you interact with a civic entity. Layman's can also be there helping you advocate for yourself.
As you are a person who constantly monitors this legal landscape of United States of America, I'm wondering, like, what are the current challenges that people face in accessing legal representation? Are there any?
So yeah, so there's the landscape is very fraught. So Layman's is an almost 2-year-old company because we had to figure out how we navigate the landscape ourselves, and we believe our moat is our compliance with it. And there's a lot of issues you're going to run into just on the front of it. First and foremost is that we used to have a number of federal bodies who would intercede on behalf of citizens and litigate on your behalf and file claims with you. Even when they did work, where we're talking about EEOC, or we're talking about the FDA, or we're talking about the ADA, et cetera, even when they did successfully work in a different administration, these entities, they did not give capital or damages back to the clients they were fighting for, not always at least. So they were more interested in punishing the bad actor than making the individual whole. So that means that you may experience a meaningful ADA compliance issue. You may be foreclosed from suing that because the ADA sued on your behalf, but you may not actually receive the damages or reward of that litigation. And when it comes to the lived experience of America as a nation that is a capitalist nation, that means that you experience a material harm, but you were not put whole, but the situation was rectified for generally of community. And you are in the same economic position, if not worse. Maybe you lost your job, maybe you lost that space, maybe you lost that opportunity after experiencing that harm, right? But now the modern reality is even a little bit worse than that, in that these entities have generally all been foreclosed from helping the individual people. They either have bigger issues to fry right now, or have been told by a federal government to not actually intercede anymore. So many opportunities and avenues that people would normally go through at least the federal government level are no longer available. And then people are now relying on their own states, which may be underfunded or not interested in pursuing these particular issues, to now litigate them on their behalf. State AGs are also overwhelmed when it comes to advocating on your behalf and dealing with issues with discrimination, employment, and so forth. Now that leaves it back to the individual. When it comes to the individual, you can go to an attorney, but for every 92 people who have a legal issue, there's about 2 attorneys. So most Americans think that getting attorneys pretty easy, or they can get legal services, but only 2% of all claims given to legal services are actually accepted. That means the general 98% or 90% of claims that go to legal services are never addressed by legal services. And then you have to go to an attorney who, at your case, is be worth at least a minimum of $3,000 to be considered. So your security deposit on an apartment may not be up to $3,000. That means that if you're trying to get it back from the landlord, an attorney will see it as a valid claim but not pursue it. And you're once again on your own. And the question of building Layman's was a question of harm reduction, where it's like we have a service that is necessary, right? Like people need this now. And we have a means to pay for it, right? Lawyers, the legal system will be happy to pay for efficiency throughout this process because they're also struggling with dealing with pro se litigants themselves. But it will be imperfect because it's AI and it's technology. But as a question of as a society, as a marketplace, as a sector, as a vertical, what do we do? Do we rather have people lose out on much bigger financial losses down the line, or give them a fighting chance? And that was the question of like, how do you respond to these many, many, many barriers to getting access and the other regulatory hurdles that we have to design around as well?
We heard about the change you are trying to make in this world, but I would like to circle back to asking you something personal. How this experience of being a business person, of developing something from scratch and going with that product to the sometimes very almost vicious and jungle-like landscape of businesses, startups, capitalism, and all of that. What you've learned about yourself and the world from that experience?
I learned a lot about myself, and I have grown and changed in so many ways that I can't even imagine from trying to do Layman's. And I think it's overall for the better. But I think when anyone else who wants to do this journey needs to know this before they go into it, I would say. In this way, I was not familiar. Um, if you start a business in this country, at the very least, depending on who you are, mind you, um, you are signing yourself up for an adventure. And that's where the word venture comes from adventure. And it's not going to be an easy one. No. You will experience the true lived reality of America, or at least how America actually sees itself for the first time ever. A lot of how business law, regulations, business are propped up, protected, structured, and shaped reflects how America truly sees itself, even not only in the economic capacity, but also in capacities that interface with the personal. You will find a lot of the people that you once believed in and had faith in about, doing things right, doing things fair, and doing things just, do not believe in those things themselves. Unfortunately, you will find a journey I'll say, refine you down to what you do and what you want to be, more so than you ever had before. And you have to find a through line between all of that and how you also are perceived and assessed. This narrative turns some people into pearls and diamonds in ways, even if they will never be assessed as such and be valued as such. And it will break some people alternatively. It is very much heat and pressure. When it goes to that question of doing a business and doing the venture and pursuing something meaningfully in a country that does not want certain people to pursue things meaningfully, I think the most important thing for anyone to recognize going into it is that most people will be judging you and measuring you have no ability to do so. Speculative capitalism is the backbone for the credit system that we interact with currently. Speculative capitalism or speculative economies is a way of trying to make material more value from a concept or a physical good based on its potential in the future or its value in the past. If you come from a nation that has held historic biases to certain identities, peoples, immigrants, and so forth, and will have biases going into the future, that means that speculative capitalism will not be the right tool to assess your impact, your value, your work, and what you're doing. It means that speculative capitalism is probably one of the first barriers you'll run into as you try to do this venture and build out a product, build out a company, and get to revenue and go to market and so forth. That means that as you're constantly navigating these shores, you need to realize that the core of everything that you're doing is your own resilience. The most valuable form of capital that you will have is that resilience. Speculative capitalism is a measure of time. So the more time you give into something, the better your likelihood and odds become, even in that economic system. So that is how I would frame the work experience, that what I've learned, what I've harnessed, and what I'm trying to recreate in my own work and recognize with what I do of we live in a system that is not the greatest. Speculative capitalism actually prioritizes people who already had means, money, and capital over those who are trying to break in, unfortunately. But being resilient, knowing what you truly have, and not measuring yourself on economics that cannot measure you in the first place will allow you to potentially, statistically speaking, win out in the end.
And you mentioned in your answer future, and I'm actually wondering where you see yourself and your company 10 years from now, and how this is gonna make the difference within you and within the society.
10 years from now, um, I believe Layman's will be successful penultimately overall just because I won't quit it. More also, secondarily, I believe that my unique lived experience is kind of necessary to do this project correctly. So no matter who else is invested in to do the same, tackle the same problem, I do believe that we will be the ones who do it the best. Secondly, 10 years from now, in a world where everyone is a better and more sufficient advocate, there's a lot of realities that have to change the American paradigm. I do believe our founders hoped that most Americans and most citizens will have the ability to advocate for themselves meaningfully. They believed the representative system would actually cover everyone, but the reality of the economics that we live in meant that was not going to be true. However, once again, the reality of America becomes a lot more true and a lot more accurate when people are all much better advocates, are able to interface with democracy correctly and meaningfully, and also use the dispute resolution tools that we have in this nation to their advantage. In that America 10 years from now, we will see a more equitable society. And some people might see that as warning bells and not be happy about a more equitable society and just be like, oh, that's just a social impact thing or whatever. But it has a material economic reality as well. A more equitable society is a happier society. It's a society that people want to be in. It's more multicultural, more fun, has better TV shows and content and material to enjoy, better movies, better books. Cities reflect what people actually want from a city. That means that cities might be more walkable, more healthy, have more green spaces, might be nicer to be a part of. The public goods that we have and share a part in will be nicer to be a part of as well. Maybe the bus system might become stronger, or you may gain a metro system or a rail system because that's what people truly wanted in the first place. And now they have the ability to advocate for those things. Our goods that we consume on a day-to-day basis, that are our food goods, our meat goods, our baked goods, and so forth, the products we give to our kids will all become better because the people who are being harmed by those goods will have the ability to advocate for themselves more materially as well. So we're talking about better quality food once again. We're talking about better quality restaurant experiences. And I do believe the vast majority of experiences are more enjoyable the more people are able to engage in them. Exclusivity is not a valuable part of a valuable thing to be a part of, in my opinion. An adventure is more fun if you have people to do it along with you. And in a society where people are more able to advocate for themselves, more material is shared, and more material is more quality, and more material is of value to everyone.
I'm wondering, Esosa, what is your butterfly effect?
If the butterfly effect is like the small little goods that we do that can live to a ripple effect of creating good for the rest of the world, The butterfly effect that I do to the day-to-day basis is operating with a sense of compassion about the work that I do. So in every interaction that I have, every person I work with, I try to hold a form of business making and venture capitalism that's also still compassionate, that recognize that we're in a system that's fundamentally unfair. We have to do the best we do within the rules or, theoretically around them. And in that paradigm, I'm going to recognize that you too are human as well and be as compassionate as possible about you getting the work that you need to get done. When it comes to layman's, I hope that I'm much more like a hawk beating their wings and a butterfly beating their wings when it comes to making ripples. I do hope it leads to a transformative effect for the American experience. But if nonetheless, if I can just do what I can do on a day-to-day basis, operating with compassion and recognizing what I can do in every scenario, what unique ability I'm coming in with, I believe leads to more ripple effects of value to everyone around me than anything else. So whenever you come to scenario, it's not a question of like, I can't do this because, or, this is hard because, I'm going to feel this way because. It's like, what can I do in that scenario? For me, that was layman's, but in many other capacities, it's just sometimes saying, how are you doing? How are you feeling right now? This is really hard. Or, connecting somebody. And I think that will be my butterfly effect of bringing compassion and hopefully building a lot more businesses in the future that are socially compassionate, are socially conscious, and also create money for other people just by being compassionate now.
Thank you so much for sharing your butterfly effect with us and bringing the butterfly effect to the justice system and making that system open to more and more people who need that support and help.